Welcome back to Blockstream Talk. Today we're speaking to Max Keidun. Building off his experience with HODL HODL, a non-custodial trading and lending platform, and as one of the main organizers of the Baltic Honeybadger conference, one of the big OG Bitcoin conferences, Max is getting ready to launch his latest project, Debifi. Like HODL HODL, it supports non-custodial Bitcoin lending, but this time with a more institutional focus. This could be big for Bitcoin peer-to-peer lending markets, which have historically been long on demand, but kind of skinny on liquidity. We talked about how the higher, cleaner yields in peer-to-peer markets are starting to catch the eye of mainstream institutional money, why we need to bring back Bitcoin's Honeybadger branding, and how Liquid and Lightning can support growth in Bitcoin lending markets. If you find this show useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Max, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Hey, thank you to having me, Jesse. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Great. Maybe to start off with, we can start with a quick introduction to yourself and to HODL HODL and Debifi.
Yeah, so my name is Max. I'm a contributor of HODL HODL, which is a non-custodial peer-to-peer trading and lending platform, and also CEO of Debifi, which is our upcoming project. Should be launched this year, November, December, which is a non-custodial lending platform for institutional lenders. We build only on top of Bitcoin. We're also part of Liquid Federation, and also I'm one of the organizers of the most OG conference, Bitcoin conference in the world, which is Baltic Honeybadger, which is happening actually as we speak, basically. So tomorrow will kick in the Riga Bitcoin Week, and Baltic Honeybadger is the main event of this festival.
Very cool. Yeah, I've never been, but I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, you should come. It's obviously I'm biased, but it's the best event out there. Hopefully, quality-wise and all other stuff.
Well, hold on. What about Plan B in Lugano?
Yeah, it's good. It's good, but different vibe. And I have a huge respect for Bitfinex, obviously, in Lugano itself. But just like the Honeybadger is just a legendary event. At least people say that. So.
And no, that's what my impression is as well. I feel like all the really good Bitcoin-focused conferences are kind of in Europe for some reason. There's not very many. I'm of course out in Asia. I'm in Taiwan, and most of it out here is like crypto, Web3, and I don't think we have any like dedicated Bitcoin conferences in Asia. They really seem concentrated in Europe for some reason.
Yeah, Asia is. I think there's one conference probably happening in Bali in October. They are kicking in, so it's going to be a first conference. And there's Nostr, which is like, it's not about Bitcoin, but it's kind of a lot of Bitcoiner going to be there. So Nostr party, I think, or Nostr event, somewhere in October and November, somewhere maybe it's in Hong Kong or then there's also Bushbash, I think, the events happening in Australia. I'm not sure it's part of Asia, but I don't want to offend anyone. But like at least for Australian event, I know that for sure that it has been like organized by hardcore Bitcoiners. So. And there's a bunch of them. I might not remember all of them, but there actual events are happening there. But yeah, mostly I wouldn't say that Europe is leading in that sense. So obviously we have Honeybadger, we have also BTC Prague, and different more localized conferences such as Innsbruck event, which is German speaking, but also I think English as well. In London happening a lot of different events, but I think like in US there's like a bunch of them now. Like it started to grow up. Like in US there's like highly respectable BitBlock Boom, There's also TapConf in Atlanta. There's also Pacific Bitcoin by Swan, and there's also Bitcoin Miami, which is going to be a Bitcoin Nashville, Lightning Summit in Nashville. So there's a lot of events happening all across the globe.
Yeah, that's very cool. I kind of feel like Bitcoin, the branding has lost a little bit of the honey badger. When I first got into Bitcoin, the honey badger was very prominent. It was on all the merch, it was on the t-shirts, and you don't see it as much for some reason. And I've actually wondered what happened to that. I wondered why that has kind of, not as prominent as it used to be. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, maybe, we are getting more and more people. Obviously, the more people you have, the less attention to details. They have a new they have a new heroes. They have a new things. We have new memes coming in, and we still stick with Honey Badger because obviously it's our spiritual animal, so we love it and we put it everywhere. But it's just us, and maybe once per year we just remind everyone that Bitcoin is actual honey badger of the money.
Exactly right. You don't hear that phrase as much. You don't see it on t-shirts and stuff, but I think it's a great description of Bitcoin, right? It's just, I saw in Chinese once, the PBOC, one of the senior officials at the PBOC called Bitcoin a cockroach that you can't kill.
That's also a pretty good description, to be honest. Like cockroaches are also pretty powerful insects. But yeah, I like honey badger more.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So getting back to the topic at hand, how do you differentiate between HODL HODL and Debifi? Is it the same kind of general idea, but a different market segmentation? Or what's the difference between the two in terms of market focus and function?
Yeah, so HODL HODL initially started as a peer-to-peer trading platform. So we tried to oppose this to local Bitcoins and Paxful. These two are non-existing anymore. If you follow the peer-to-peer market, so local Bitcoins doesn't operate anymore. I'm not sure what's happening with Paxful. At some point they stopped operations. Now I don't know what's happening. I don't follow them. So we just wanted, and all these platforms they were custodial and thus centralized. So we thought it's not a good thing to do because Bitcoin obviously is about holding your keys, having at least some level of control over your funds, and being non-custodial is one of the pillars and core principles of Bitcoin. So we decided to build HODL HODL, and HODL HODL is I would say HODL HODL is mostly for it's peer-to-peer. It's pure peer-to-peer, plap to plap, as we say. So it's retail. It's basically anyone can become buyer, seller, lender, borrower. So that's the principle. And then in 2021, we launched the lending platform, or 2020, I don't remember, which is also peer-to-peer, pure peer-to-peer. Everyone in the world can just borrow against their Bitcoin, borrow stable coins, because we decided we'll go with stable coins. You can borrow liquid Tether on our platform, and these are also eventually everything. The land at HodlHodl become a micro lending platform. You can borrow up to $25,000. Not more, and it's basically we are trying to promote that, and we're moving in direction that is becoming micro lending, stablecoin only, very fast, anonymous, where Bitcoin locked in collateral is basically your credit score. Yeah, as long as you have collateral, your lender doesn't care who you are. Basically, you have assets, you prove that they are there, and you can cover all your obligations. And obviously, the core principle of HODL HODL is anonymity. We don't request. We believe in free market. We have a lot of traders who actually request some personal data because they're either licensed brokerage companies or something like that. But we believe in free market. Let the free market decide. If you don't like that someone requests from you any kind of personal information, you can always create your own offer, which is free. Now, comparing to Debifi, the difference is that Debifi will be For larger volume loans only, so it's only lending platform. There's no trading, at least no planned. Large volume, so you will be able to borrow from 25,000. So it's you cannot borrow less than 25,000. We'll provide a fiat loans and stablecoin loans, so we're adding fiat to the equation. And lenders will be only institutions, and we will know the lenders. So you cannot become lender as now. When you go to HodlHodl, you don't need to like go through any due diligence with us. You just go, you create an account, and you do that. So with Debifi, we'll know who are the lenders. We'll do the due diligence on them. But borrower can become anyone, like personal, legal entity, person, whatever. And obviously, one of the main difference, like if we're not touching the technical part, it's built on top of Bitcoin multisig, right? In HODL we use 2 out of 3. In Debifi we're going to use 3 out of 4. There's a lot of small differences, but the main difference is that Debifi not going to be anonymous, because obviously if you're borrowing from the bank, even through Bitcoin-based platform, the bank need to do the KYC on you, because they cannot lend money without knowing their customer. So that's one of the main differences. I think a part of we're talking about different volumes, different type of clientele, and of course, approach towards due diligence.
Okay, understood. Yeah, so that's one of the questions I was going to ask is how do you manage the balance between anonymity and regulatory obligations around fraud and money laundering? And it sounds like you do that by splitting it out into 2 different platforms.
Yeah, and on Debifi, again, we as non-custodial entity and as a technical provider, we're not obliged to do the KYC, but lenders on Debifi who are going to lend money, of course, they are subject to do KYC, and we'll provide them with the tools. They're going to collect the KYC data on borrowers. We're not going to see this data. We don't want to touch that. We don't want to hold that, obviously. So it will be streamed directly to them. And then again, you will be able to borrow. I know that some of the cases, even with large volume loans, are still not subject for KYC. Like if you borrow stable coins, again, Bitcoin in some regions, you can do it easily anonymously. So on Debifi, there might be a case when the borrower is legally able to provide you a stablecoin loan without going through any due diligence with you. Yes, as long as you have Bitcoin locked as collateral in escrow and like it's provable, obviously. So yeah, but these are just few differences. Again, if we were going to talk about all the difference, then probably 1 hour is not enough for us to cover this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. One thing you mentioned was the difference in the multisig schema. What's the rationale between that?
Yeah, so 2 out of 3 that we use on in HODL HODL is like small loans up to 12 months. Easy to manage everything. With 3 out of 4 for Debifi, we are actually expecting that we're going to provide up to 5-year loans, so it's a longer time period. And we want to ensure extra layer of security, which is change the consensus mechanism, 3 out of 4, so that there will be a 4th key distributed between lender borrower, Debifi as a platform, and 4th key will be held by 4th key holder, which is like 4th key backup holder. It's an independent entity, Bitcoin company, several Bitcoin companies actually, which will hold the 4th key in cold storage. All of them will be held in cold storage, but anyway, so they will hold the backup key. And why we did that? Because we don't know how lenders and borrowers access their OPSEC and security. There's always, even if you're using cold storage for holding your keys, there's always this thing which is called $5 wrench attack. There's always a physical impact I'm not gonna audit every borrower and lender in order to understand how they're holding their keys. We're going to provide them with all the tools. We're going to provide them with hardware wallet integration, but again, there's always some kind of scam attempts. So what we've done effectively with Debifi for large volume loans, we believe that even if the borrower or lender is a bad actor and he gets the second key from his counterparty, he still needs to get a third key from either Debifi or from fourth key holder, and we know our security setup. We kind of understand how to hold keys securely and safely. And the same thing also applies to our fourth key holder because we're doing the security audit on them as well. So just to be sure that even if two keys are suddenly in hands of one bad actor, then still you cannot move collateral. And if we're talking about collateral, which potentially can be worth like millions or hundreds of millions or tens of millions, obviously you want to be sure that everything is pretty well structured. So that's the difference.
Got it. So these kind of peer-to-peer loans, the yield on them tend to run like fairly high. Have you found that that's pulled in more interest from liquidity providers, like institutional kind of players?
Yeah, because they with Debifi, like with Debifi, we're basically building institutional peer-to-peer. Like again, it's peer-to-peer, but for institutions. And with Debifi, they will be able to actually lend money with higher APR, and they will get all the interest payment to them. They don't need to use like if you're a bank and you, for example, and you have liquidity and you want to go to Bitcoin lending market, most probably the way to do that will be through centralized entity. Like previously it was like BlockFi or Celsius, these infamous projects, and you just give money to them, liquidity to them. They allocate that liquidity, but they also charge the interest for that. So obviously you don't receive full profits. Now with Debifi, you will be able to directly offload your money to the end customer, and you will get all the interest payment. But there's also one interesting feature that we think, or I would say, that we see now on our lending platform. Sometimes, even though it's peer-to-peer, even though it's anonymous, we see that the rates on lend at HodlHodl sometimes comparable or even lower in some cases than those rates that people actually provide on centralized lending platforms or verified and highly, due lending platforms. So it's always a market, and with basically, as we say, or we try to believe that it's true, with lend at HodlHodl, you get the APR that is actually built up by the free market. People from one end decide, okay, I want to borrow and I'm happy to pay that kind of interest. And people on the other end who are lending money, like, okay, I can't provide that type of loan with that type of LTV for that period, and I'm happy with that interest. So it's basically free market deciding what's the proper rate. Same actually applies to the price of Bitcoin, because some people, there's a theory that the real price for Bitcoin is basically provided by anonymous peer-to-peer trading platform, because again, it's a free market. There's buyers, there's sellers, and they find their deal somewhere in between. And because Bitcoin is supposed to be privacy oriented, because it's supposed to be anonymous, because of that, some people expressed opinion that like platforms like Bisq or HodlHodl, they do provide the most accurate rate for real Bitcoin, as they say, that people are happy to pay. Because some people tend to say that that Bitcoin that is bought on KYC platform is not a real Bitcoin because it's lacked properties of anonymity. But yeah, it's just a theory.
So what kind of institutional kind of players do you see being attracted? I mean, who are the liquidity providers? Is it high crypto net worth people, family offices? Do you see like more traditional mainstream institutional investors taking part in this as well?
Yeah, we're actually the idea of Debifi came to us when we've been approached by one Asian bank, commercial bank. So they knew the land at HodlHodl platform, and at some point they just, we would like to have that kind of solution, but just white labeled and suitable for institutions. And we thought, like, for 1 month we did our brainstorming and thought, okay, we just want to separate large volume loans provided by licensed entities and small volume loans provided by retail investors. We want to separate, and we decided we need to build Debifi for that. So the idea for Debifi is that, and we see that there's a huge demand from traditional financial institutions like banks, hedge funds, family offices as well. We've been approached by several family offices, but also some companies that already are in Bitcoin space. They are actually planning to set up a separate credit vehicle or credit fund in order to start offloading liquidity on Debifi. So there are several options, and obviously our main idea and dream about Debifi is that we want to onboard commercial banks and different types of banks. Why not even maybe central banks to the Bitcoin standard, so they understand that it's a non-custodial setup first, it's Bitcoin only the second thing, and it's like highly programmable, transparent, and you can give loans remotely. You don't need to actually be presented in certain region. You can expand your regions.
Okay, so you're one of the main organizers of the Baltic Honeybadger conference. How did it start?
It was actually a crazy idea. We back in the days when we started HodlHodl, we didn't have any funds to do the proper marketing, and like we decided that the best strategy would be is like obviously put a lot of effort towards education, and we decided like, well, let's do a couple of meetups in Riga, Latvia, and see how people like going to attend it, whether and it's actually like we did a couple of them, like two of them, and we didn't spend any money because we found a co-working space who provided the free space for us, and it was like there was high attendance, like everything was completely fully like loaded with people. And then at some point we decided like, well, maybe we should find a sponsor and try to do the conference in order to make it a marketing event to promote HodlHodl brand, because we didn't launch HodlHodl before Baltic Honeybadger. We actually launched it 6 months after the Baltic Honeybadger. So Honeybadger was initially our like marketing trick in order to gain some recognition before the launch of HodlHodl. And
The old Trojan horse.
yeah, it's basically become, and it's surprisingly it's become its own thing. So Baltic Honeybadger is like its own brand now, separated, different entity, and all that stuff. And yeah, we found a sponsor. Actually, the sponsor was the same entity who owned this co-working space, and we kind of invited. We started by inviting like some of the big names at that point. We were lucky that some of them were based here in Riga.
So what was the year? What was the kind of date of that?
2017. It was like, yeah, it was very like it like it's 6 years, but it feels like it's been a century. So and we kind of decided to do that. We found a sponsor, but also one of the reasons behind doing the Honeybadger was that we were sick and tired of all these blockchain conferences. it was beginning of ICO craze, if you remember this.
Yes, I do indeed. Yeah.
And you know, you go to the conference, whenever you go to the conference, you know, people are selling you some like weird shit coins. You know, here's like we're launching ICO for, selling cars. We are going to tokenize the retro cars, and there will be a millions of people owning like one token, and this will be one Ferrari.
Jesus coin and Denta coin and yeah.
Yeah, it was so crazy. It was like I don't know, it was crazy. It was like circus, like global circus of jerks, I would say. But anyway, and yeah, and we decided, well, fuck it, you know, we're just gonna do we're just gonna do our own Bitcoin only conference. We invited Adam, actually. We invited a couple of people. I remember that some of them were writing to our Riga, one of our Riga speakers, and like, is it safe to go to Latvia? You know, people weren't aware, like, you know, it's Eastern Europe, and like, is it safe? Should we go? These guys like Baltic Honeybadger, what do you know about it? And like one of the speakers were actually pretty cheering for us and helping. And surprisingly, we also there was like some issues at the beginning, but then we've approached Andreas Antonopoulos, and he said yes. And when we announced Andreas, it was like bam, and all the rest of the speakers wanted to join. And I'm really thankful for Andreas, because it's like, I would say 50% of Honeybadger's success is because of Andreas. He agreed. He went to Riga, and he actually did a great speech at that conference. It's available online. It was crazy, you know. It was so powerful speech. And the first Honeybadger, it was like, I would say it was like around 200 people, maybe even less. So it's a small crowd, and it was like 10 speakers, I think, and like they were rolling for both days. You know, we decided, let's do 2 days, and there was, if you compare the list of the speakers, the agenda, the talks, you will see that it was like, just, it could just be done in one day, but somehow we decided, let's do 2 days. And it was huge success. Next year we did a bigger event space. We invited more speakers. 300 people came in. Next year we did the same. Like 500 people came in, and then there was a COVID, and but then we restarted. Last year it was 700 people, and this year hopefully will be even more. And this year we have 3 stages, more than 100 speakers, you know, like whole week of different events, and it's crazy. It has grown up. We never tried to be the biggest conference in the world, because it's like, you need to understand that the conference for us is not the main activity. You know, we still have developments, Bitcoin product developments like HODL HODL and Debifi, but we like to do this. It's our thank you to amazing Bitcoin community. We still believe that it's amazing community, and yeah, that's the short story of Honeybadger.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, and Andreas has in the early days, I learned a lot from him about Bitcoin. He's one of the guys that I think really helped explain things to me. And sometimes you see people say, "Hey, when is Saylor going to go on Joe Rogan and talk about Bitcoin?" And people forget that Andreas was on Joe Rogan twice, right? He was on there in like 2014. I think that was one of the first times I heard about Bitcoin, and then again in 2015. And he has some great content and some really, really good material out there that's probably still really great if you go back and look at it, I'm sure. I had a similar experience on the conference side when I was working for Macquarie, is that at the same time, 2017, all the big banks, our competitors, JP Morgan, they were doing blockchain, but not Bitcoin. And I wanted to do a Bitcoin conference, at the bank. And I had the same kind of thing. I just started reaching out to people. I pinged Samson, I didn't know him back then. I just pinged Samson and said, "Hey, could you come over and present at our, for the bank? We're going to do a closed door thing for institutional clients in Hong Kong." And he's like, I can't make it, but I've got this guy, Adam Back. Would you be interested? We well, that'd be great. And then Adam came, and we had people from Bitfury, and we had the CEO of Bitfinex, JL, and just, and then at that time, I think a lot of these investors didn't know really like how influential the people that they were, that they were meeting with, and what a great opportunity it was. So that's really cool, kind of back in that time when you can get access to a lot of really influential people like that. It's kind of like the golden age of those smaller conferences when you could do stuff like that. It's very cool.
Yeah, but it's also, it's I think it's a part of community, because a lot of people, they're just afraid to reach out. And we've been lucky, but we also see that it's okay. You can reach out to basically anyone, and you can ask anyone. You want to come, and most probably they're going to come, to your event. Back in the days, it was a bit more easier, because now it's like there's a lot of different events, and people get picky, and they try to choose the best one. Some people say, hey, I'm not gonna travel, I'm gonna stick with my region and all that stuff. Okay, that's understandable, but there's a lot of high quality speakers now as well. There's more of them than it was back in the days.
Yeah, that's true as well. So Baltic Honeybadger is next week, and I think this episode is going to be dropped.
It's actually this week already.
So maybe we can front run it a little bit. Maybe you can give us, knowing that we won't release this until after it, maybe you can give us a bit of a scoop on what big announcements you have planned for the conference.
We avoid marketing stuff, announcements, and all that stuff. I don't know what our other teams are going to do. We allow this to do, but only in scope of your presentation. Presentation should be educational or technical, and then in the end you can say, by the way, this product that I have just described to you, we're going to use in our service. But I can say for HodlHodl that we're going to do announcement on our end. First of all, we're in the process of completely redesigning HodlHodl in terms of user interfaces and user experience. We started this process back last year in October, released first parts of updated version of HodlHodl. It was actually a huge success. We saw some significant growth volumes because people suddenly, peer-to-peer becoming easier for any type of person, whether it's very sophisticated or a noob. So we're going to continue this path, and we're going to announce that we're releasing a trading functionality, new improved trading functionality in October. Another thing which is crucial, we're going to announce the release of lending API. So you will be able to use our lending API, integrate our lending tag into your platform services, or you can just build your own on top of that. But these are announcements for the future, I would say. It's not like we're announcing and it's already there. And I think the main announcement is an answer on the most often asked and mostly hated by me question: when Lightning? Because we received this question for I think the last 3 years doing the HodlHodl. So I'm gonna answer that question, because in Q1, in the beginning of next year, we're going to launch peer-to-peer Lightning trades on HodlHodl. And these Lightning trades will be fully non-custodial. They will be anonymous, and they will be global. So you will be able to do single trades, do DCA, and you will be able to do this in peer-to-peer manner. And this is something unique we're building. And actually, we've been building this for, I would say, well, since we launched HodlHodl, we've basically been building our Lightning functionality. We didn't know about that, but then we realized that, hey, everything is there. We just need to take the pieces of the puzzle and make them work together. So this is what we're doing at the moment. So the big announcement is that Lightning is coming to peer-to-peer world and to HodlHodl, most probably Q1 2024. Not most probably, but definitely Q1 2024. That's the big announcement.
A hard deadline. I like it.
Yeah,
Good.
if you don't put a hard deadline, the product won't be delivered.
No, exactly. So I want to ask you some questions about the liquid integration, but before I forget, I also want to ask you about the API. So the API will be for HODL or for Debifi, because I imagine that's for institutional investors, they want to have the API access, right?
So we are going to do the API both for Lend and both for Debifi. So for Lend, we released the platform, and then we started building the API. For Debifi, we're simultaneously releasing the platform, and shortly after that, we're releasing API. So Debifi most probably will kick off with API already available for institutional clients.
That should be a massive deal for liquidity on the platform, right? As soon as you can get people to use an API. Yeah, that's very cool. On Lightning, so you said that people have been asking for this integration for years, and you hate this question. Do you think do people really want this, or is this just Bitcoiners being, trying to promote Bitcoin and Liquid? Because from my perspective, it seems like something like Liquid would be more appropriate for this kind of situation because you can do bigger size. So what are your thoughts on that? Because people always say that they want to have Lightning on exchanges as well. And Bitfinex, we've had it for a number of years already. You see others starting to talk about adopting it. But it just seems to make more sense to use Liquid because you get the same kind of, you can non-custodial, you can move it faster, more confidential, all of that. But Lightning is just smaller size. So I don't really see how that makes sense for exchanges and kind of for your platform as well.
Yeah, the difference between exchanges and peer-to-peer trading platforms is that actually, like with peer-to-peer trading platforms, there are high amount of smaller trades. People want to trade different regions. HodlHodl is built for emerging markets, and you cannot go to like Latin America or Africa or Southeast Asia and say, hey guys, when there's mempool, it's full, and we saw the spike this year, right? And you cannot say, hey, there's amazing new technology for unbanked people like you, and you can just buy $50 worth of Bitcoin, but you need to pay a $20 fee for that. It's just crazy. So Lightning works in that sense. First of all, for emerging market, I think Lightning makes very much sense. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I think that what we are building it's actually non-existing at the moment, and I think this might change the market. I hope it will change the market and will provide people an opportunity easily buy a lot of Lightning Bitcoin. I mean, like do a lot of different trades and easily at any certain point of time. So I think the ease of use also is an important thing. And I didn't say we're not going to integrate Liquid. So Liquid is on the way. We're going to integrate it in 2024. But as you mentioned, Liquid is for higher trades, and Liquid is for high amounts. Of course, you can transact smaller trades, but with that kind of low fee that there is now on a mempool, you can do everything on chain. You don't need Liquid, you don't need Lightning. It's just cheap transaction. You can do with everything. But we want to have both of them. And of course, we're going to do that as well. So both of them are amazing, different use cases, yes. And but we are building the core for Lightning trades in such ways that we can add Liquid trades later very easy on top of that. So like Liquid is on the way as well, but I'm not going to announce that yet.
Or give a deadline. Yeah, that's good. So HodlHodl has been a Liquid Federation member since, like 2020. So how does that partnership fit in with your business at the moment?
At some point, we were actually very actively one of the main use cases for Liquid Tether. And I'm a big fan of Liquid Tether, to be honest, because people were borrowing Liquid Tether on our lending platform. So that's amazing that was amazing, because if you remember, at some point Ethereum fees were very high, and if you tried to borrow Tether on top of Ethereum, you would be paying a lot. And a lot of people in that moment, they actually switched to Liquid, and they understood the beauty of the Liquid. So for us, being a Liquid Federation member is not only having access to all the tools that we have, but also we decided it's a perfect fit, since we have Liquid Tether, we promote Liquid, and we like how it works. It doesn't break the promise. Everything as described, everything works as described. So yeah, for us, Liquid is an amazing tool, and we try to promote within our lending platform. Of course, our involvement will be bigger and better when we're going to integrate Liquid directly to our products, but this is coming.
Yeah, it's interesting how the fees on Ethereum drove a push for Tether onto different blockchains. So Tron became really big around that time as well. And you still see these tweets today about how Tron is very active in DeFi, a number one blockchain protocol for DeFi. And I kind of suspect that it's pretty much all Tether, so which is kind of funny. But yeah, Liquid is super, super cheap for Tether, and super fast. It settles in a minute. So it's just amazing. I always think that when I send Tether from my green wallet to my Bitfinex account, it settles in like 1 minute, which is kind of always blows me away.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I can confirm that. But also, yeah, I was also blown away, not only but Liquid, but I was late to the Lightning party. I hadn't like Lightning sets for a very long time. And then first time I asked one of my friends, can you just send me like $5 worth of Lightning? And I did, and then it's like instantly. I do know how Liquid works, and I received Liquid transactions, and I saw that speed, but also for Lightning, it was pretty amazing.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, both are very cool. HodlHodl supports over 100 currencies for trading. Do you have plans to extend that to Debifi as well? Will it be a similar kind of offering?
No, with Debifi, again, it's we support 100 currencies at trading part, and Debifi is purely lending platform. But with Debifi, one of our goals is to become the major global liquidity aggregator for Bitcoin lenders and borrowers. So, of course, we want to have person, I don't know, from Brazil being able to borrow against his Bitcoin or her Bitcoin in Brazil real, or person in US. Obviously, this will be one of the first fiat currencies will be added, but yeah, borrow in USD, or a person from Australia borrowing in Australian dollars, or yens and yuans and euro, whatever. So we want to expand this offering. Eventually we want that our goal is that people from across the globe, they don't need to think about, okay, I can borrow, but I have this currency risk and all that stuff. So we believe, yeah, that that's one of the goals. So person, like at the moment, I'll be honest, borrowing against your Bitcoin is non-existent in most of the part of the world. It's basically everything is dollar denominated, right? There's a pretty robust and good market in US, but outside of US, it's almost non-existent. You have Canada, some of the stuff, you have GBP, but like you go to Euro area and you see huge problems, right? You go to Japan, you go to any proper region or any emerging market, you see that it's non-existent. This is what we want to build. We want to build a platform where you can borrow in any currency you prefer, or at least in most, usable currencies in the world.
So do you think your focus in terms of markets is more emerging markets than developed markets? I think you mentioned that before.
For HodlHodl, definitely emerging markets is number one, and we saw the good growth there. We're actually growing in this market. We are more focused on this market. Of course, traditional markets also operate on HODL HODL. For Debifi, I wouldn't distinguish this and that, because also there's a difference. In emerging markets, I think people need to, the more interest for people is to acquire Bitcoin. In developed countries, the more interest is how to work further with Bitcoin. Because in developed countries there's so many ways how you can acquire Bitcoin, and most of the people from this region, they already have Bitcoin, and they now, like, they're facing the dilemma: what should I do with that? I want to keep it as an asset, but I have some expenses to cover. I want to buy other assets maybe, or I want to buy more Bitcoin. How should I structure it? And then there's Debifi for that, and also landed HODL HODL for that.
Do you think that there's a difference in use case for Bitcoin in emerging and kind of developed markets, where in developed markets it's more a speculative asset where people are, betting on number goes up, and maybe a little bit on an inflation hedge, whereas in emerging markets it's more like a survival raft if your currency is not very stable?
I think that for developed markets, the main case is probably, people in developed markets, they do understand the value of the freedom. So for them, it's also, but most of the use cases is basically hedging yourself from inflation, from money printing and all that stuff. So I wouldn't say it's of course it's speculative asset mostly in all markets. Everyone says we are in it for attack, but everyone is like smiling and happy when Bitcoin hits like 600 per one coin. Nobody cries about that. Everyone is like, okay, we're in for attack, but also having some nice profits is also a good thing, good feature, side effect. But I think for emerging markets, it's mostly the question of survival, and like optimizing your expenses if you have them, and surviving certain things in your life. As for developed countries, it's more like, I would say, hedging tools, economical hedging tools. And because we already have, like, in developed markets,
so many options.
Yeah, people are happy, and people are not happy. People are lucky to have, blessed, I would say, comparing to some emerging markets, blessed to have so many options, so many tools. And but everything based on top of fiat. So obviously Bitcoin is one of the ways how to hedge the risk of fiat itself. As for emerging markets, they have different problems, and sometimes main property for them is not about hedging the inflation. It's about having an asset that you can move across the border,
capital controls.
Yeah, or having an asset which you own purely, and government cannot come and take it from you. So there's different use cases.
Definitely. Where would you point people if you're interested in learning more about HODL HODL or Debifi? Where should people go to learn more about that?
Just go to HodlHodl.com. All the information is there. Basically, all the guides, videos, whatever you want to do. And Debifi, well, there's a website, debifi.com. Briefly, you can get familiarized with that. You can listen a couple of podcasts with me, and maybe watch a video on YouTube. But for Debifi, we are going to release more and more information as soon as product will be launched. But so far, I think we did a good job with our one pager at our website. So you can just go there, check it out, and sign up to get an early access.
Okay, great. And maybe last question, what gets you most excited kind of in the next 12 or 18 months in Bitcoin, or with HODL HODL or Debifi? What are you most pumped up about?
I'm pumped up about our products, actually. So about Debifi launch, obviously, because we have some interesting credit tools coming on top of Debifi. just an opportunity to borrow against your Bitcoin is not an end game for us. We have other features and other products on top of Debifi, which will be gradually released during the next year. And some of them are non-existing in Bitcoin market at the moment. As for HodlHodl, well, I'm pumped about Lightning release, of course, and further release of Liquid. And we're also planning to build a mobile app for HodlHodl, and this is very exciting for me as well.
That's very cool. Well, Max, we'll definitely have to have you back on when you get some of these new products and features to market. So look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and cheers.